Welcome to the Video Professor's Computer Learning Series on CD-ROM. This is the same great lesson that is found on our videotapes. This CD lesson window will always play on top of any application, so you can follow along step by step to learn the program. We have packed this CD with information, and sometimes move at a pace that is faster than you'll be able to follow along with. To help you with this, we have designed the CD to work just like a VCR. You can pause, rewind, or fast forward the CD to learn each part just by clicking the appropriate buttons. From the Table of Contents menu, you can select or review any part of this lesson instantly. For your convenience, a Video Professor icon has been added to your desktop. To view this or future lessons, simply put the CD in your drive and click on this icon to start that lesson. Now, to get started, simply click on the menu item you want to learn. For best results, we suggest you start at the first item and work your way through to the end.
Thanks for trying Video Professor's Computer Learning CD. We know that you'll find it the quickest and easiest way to learn computers, as millions of others have. As an added bonus, we've included 30 free days of unlimited internet access with Video Professor Online right on this CD-ROM. And you can choose another CD free just for trying this service. Even if you're already online, we'd like you to try Video Professor Online for these great reasons. Free unlimited access for 30 days, 24-hour live technical support, no bothersome advertisements on your homepage, guaranteed fast connections, email with automatic mail announcer, and a low monthly rate if you decide to stay connected with VPOL after your free trial period. All you have to do is click on the gold Install VPOL Free button on your lesson menu. It's easy. All you need to do is make sure your modem is connected to a phone line. And after you sign up, don't forget to send in your coupon for a free CD-ROM of your choice. This coupon was included in the package you just received from Video Professor. Enjoy your computer learning and your free Video Professor online internet access.
Now let's get started. And welcome to my lesson on Excel 97, one of the most popular spreadsheet applications in use today. It makes working on any business or personal accounting project a snap. With this version of Excel, you get all the advantages of this powerful Microsoft spreadsheet program, plus the power and convenience of working within the Windows environment. For example, you can take text from a word processing program, graphics from another program, and combine them with the numbers and charts from Excel to create a well-balanced, professional-looking document, all without a lot of complicated file exchange procedures or stopping and starting programs. Because Excel 97 works within the Windows 95 or 98 environment, it is important that you understand how Windows works. You should know how to use the Start menu to open an application program. You should also know how to use your mouse and keyboard to select options within pull-down menus and dialog boxes. If you don't understand how to accomplish these actions, I strongly suggest you see my lessons on learning Windows 95 or 98 before starting this lesson. And in this lesson, we will learn basic Excel spreadsheet skills, such as working with toolbar icons, entering and editing data, creating formulas, formatting your spreadsheet, plus saving and printing files. Before going any further, I'd like to introduce Suzanne, my student helper for this lesson. Simply follow along with her, and you'll be using this program in no time. Later in this lesson, we'll save our work to floppy disk. Before proceeding, I suggest you find a formatted and empty diskette to have on hand, so you can save your Video Professor results to it. At this point, I'm going to assume you have your system up and running with the Windows desktop screen appearing before you. I'm also going to assume you have Excel 97 installed on your system's hard drive. Suzanne, click on the Start button. There are a number of ways in which to launch Excel 97. We'll go through the Programs menu. Click on it, Suzanne. When the program list appears, find the Microsoft Excel icon. It may be on its own or under the Microsoft Office title. Once you locate the Excel program icon, double-click on it. The Excel screen you see before you is the out-of-the-box display. None of the default settings or features has been changed on Suzanne's screen. Viewers, don't worry if your screen differs slightly from Suzanne's. As we explore the Excel screen, I'll give commands for suggested changes to your display. By the end of the next section, everyone should have basically the same look on screen. Now, let's begin our voyage into the world of electronic spreadsheets by looking at Excel's basic screen features. Like most Windows-based applications, Excel has the standard Windows layout and controls. At the very top of the Excel screen is the title bar. It allows us to activate and move Excel's application window. It also displays which application and workbook we are working in. Microsoft Excel appears as the application name, and it is followed by the generic workbook name, Book 1. On the far left side of the title bar is the standard window application control menu. It contains commands to control the size and position of the Excel window on the Windows 95 desktop. It also allows you to close Excel. And in the far right corner are the standard Windows sizing icons: minimize, maximize, restore, and close. The top set belongs to the Excel application window. If the application window isn't full screen, click on the Maximize Restore icon. It's the one in the middle. The second set of sizing icons controls the spreadsheet window. Suzanne, click on its Maximize Restore icon. Now look at the change on your screen. We reduced the size of the spreadsheet window. Since Excel is developed to operate in the Windows 95 environment, we can have multiple spreadsheet windows open within the Excel application window at the same time. Reducing their size is one way to move quickly between them. Excel calls its spreadsheet files workbooks, and within each workbook we can have multiple worksheets in which you can enter, calculate, and analyze data. For example, we can save a company's payroll under the workbook file named Payroll. Within that workbook file, we can have a separate sheet for each division in the company, one for administration, one for production, and yet another for marketing. At the lower left corner of the workbook window are 3 tabs. Each represents a single worksheet. You move to each worksheet by clicking its tab. We can add and delete sheets as a project dictates. We'll take a closer look at the workbook window a little while later. Let's turn our attention back to the Excel application window and its features. Suzanne, look directly beneath the title bar. It's the menu bar. Its pull-down menus give us access to every command available in this application. It has the standard File, Edit, and Help menus that are available to all Windows-based applications. And between them are menus that house functions specific to this program. You open them like any other Windows-based program. The Windows title and menu bars will always appear on your screen, but you can choose whether or not to display some of the other screen features. Let's check it out. Pull down the View menu. This menu allows us to manipulate which Excel tools appear on your screen. The check marks next to the formula bar and status bar indicate those features are currently active. Do you see the white bar with the A1 displayed in it on the far left? That's the formula bar. It is partially covered by the View menu. Point to the formula bar on the View menu and click. The formula bar no longer appears on screen, but it isn't lost. Pull down the View menu again. Notice that there is no longer a check mark next to the formula bar. This indicates the option is currently inactive. The formula bar and status bar are very basic Excel tools, so let's make sure they are both active for our lesson. Click on the formula bar's command title to toggle that option back on. And it's back on screen. The 2 toolbars with all the icons on them can also be toggled on and off. These toolbars can be edited to include or exclude different functions. Suzanne, pull down the View menu and then open the Toolbars command. The submenu displays a list of the toolbars available to Excel. Suzanne has check marks next to the Standard and Formatting toolbars because they are part of Excel's default settings. Viewers, we need both toolbars active in this lesson. So if either of them is inactive, click on its title to toggle it on, and then reopen the Toolbar submenu. Suzanne, click on the Chart option. And just like that, we have a new toolbar on screen. These icons, of course, are used in creating and editing Excel charts. Right now, it's a floating toolbar, meaning we can drag it around the desktop so it's out of the way of data entry. but still close enough to quickly access its commands. Let's anchor it. Click and drag the chart toolbar so it appears on top of the menu bar. When you have it in the right location, release your mouse button. It's now anchored directly under the menu bar. To move it again, just click on the two columns that appear at the left side of the toolbar, and then drag the toolbar to a new location. Anytime you see these on the left side of the toolbar, you know it can be made to float. Suzanne, right-click the mouse pointer on the chart toolbar or one of the other toolbars. This automatically opens the toolbars list. As we can see here, there is a check mark next to the chart option. Click on the chart title to deactivate the chart toolbar. Just below the menu bar is the standard toolbar. By clicking on its icons, we can quickly access many of Excel's most commonly used commands and features. Move your mouse slowly along the bar without clicking any of the icons. As the pop-up flags show us, the standard toolbar has icons for opening and saving files, spell-checking your document's text, cutting, copying, and pasting data, as well as functions specific to spreadsheet operations. At the right side of the standard toolbar is the Zoom control window. Click on the arrow at the right edge of that window. Now, while keeping your eye on the workbook window, click on the 50% option. You'll notice that the workbook window changed. It now displays more of the available worksheet area. Suzanne, double-click on the percentage that is displayed in the Zoom entry box. Once it is highlighted, type in 95% and then press your Enter key. The next row of icons comprise the formatting bar. It has icons and control boxes that access format commands such as font and font size, page alignment, numerical style, borders, and colors. When we begin building a spreadsheet, we will use this toolbar to change the appearance of the data within our workbook. On the far left side of the formatting toolbar are the font and font size boxes. Click on the arrow next to the right of the font box. This lists all the fonts available to your installed version of Excel. Suzanne's default and font type is Arial. To see more of the font choices on your system, just use the scroll bar attached to the list. To change font type, simply click on another font name. We can also change the size this font type appears in. Click on the arrow to the right side of the font size box. The amount of size choices listed here depends on the individual font. We can change the font and font size for a single cell, a cell range, or the entire worksheet. Viewers, if you don't have the Arial font at 10 points, click on the Select All button that appears at the upper left-hand corner of the workbook. This selects every cell in the workbook sheet. Once that's done, use the font and font size boxes to select the Arial font and 10 points. Below the formatting toolbar is the formula bar. It gives information about the active cell in the spreadsheet and offers ways to enter text and formulas into the cells. At the bottom of the application window is the status bar. As we work within the workbook window, the status bar will tell us if we are entering or editing a cell's contents. It also displays the status of your keyboard's num, scroll, and caps lock keys. In the middle of the screen is the actual rows and columns spreadsheet, which Excel calls Workbook. The numbers on the left indicate row numbers, and the letters at the top identify columns. The intersection of a row and column is called a cell. Any information entered into a workbook is stored within a cell. Suzanne, look at the box at the left side of the formula bar. It's the name box. It displays the address of the active cell and at times offers information related to the data within the active cell. The A1 you see in the name box tells us that the active cell is the intersection of column A and row 1. If you were to enter data now, it would appear in that cell. Suzanne, click on cell C7. That's the cell where row 7 and column C intersect. Now look at the name box. It displays the address of the cell you just clicked on. Click on another cell and its address appears in the name box. As with most Windows-based applications, we are given scroll bars. These bars allow us to move to areas within the worksheet not in our immediate view. We can scroll our view of the workbook vertically and horizontally. Since there are more columns in the spreadsheet than letters in the alphabet, the column letters are doubled up each time the count gets to Z. Each workbook sheet is composed of 256 columns and 65,536 rows. That's over 16.5 million cells per sheet at your disposal. Press your Control and Home keys to move us back to cell A1. Suzanne, let's enlarge this workbook window to maximum size again. We could use the Maximize button in the upper right corner of this window. Instead, let's use the Workbook's control menu. It's up at the upper left-hand corner of the workbook window. Click on its icon. When the control menu opens, click on the Maximize command. The two windows appear as one again. The workbook title bar disappeared, and its title has merged with the application title. Always remember that even though they now look like they are a single entity, the workbook is still a separate window inside the Excel application window. Now that we know how to control the Excel environment, let's put some of these tools to work. Well, Suzanne, we've been looking at this blank worksheet long enough. Let's build a simple personal budget. Suzanne will enter some labels first, then set up the formulas to do our calculations. After that, we'll put in some numbers from your checkbook and begin to plan your financial future. All right, then, let's start at the top. Everyone should have cell A1 selected. The title of our spreadsheet will be Personal Financial Budget. Please type it just as it appears on the screen, including the spelling mistakes. When you start typing, 3 more symbols appear on the edit line. The X is the cancel button. You click on it to reject new data entered into a cell. Pressing the escape key performs the same action. The check mark is the confirm button. Clicking on it accepts new data. Pressing the enter key also confirms new data entry. The button with the equal sign on it is the edit formula button. It simplifies entering formulas in Excel. Now that we know what those symbols represent, let's enter this text into the spreadsheet. Click on the confirm button or press your enter key. This cell entry is called a label. Labels are usually words that tell us what the numbers in our spreadsheet refer to. Suzanne, let's take a look at a few basic editing tools. In order to edit a cell's contents, that cell must be active. The mistake we want to correct is in cell A1, so make sure that cell is selected, then click anywhere in the formula bar. You'll notice that when we do, the status bar indicates we are in edit mode. Edit mode allows you to make changes to your typing without retyping the whole thing. Suzanne, click and drag your mouse from the F to the second N in financial. Now press your delete key to make the highlighted text disappear. This method works well when you want to delete larger words or entire phrases. You can also use the delete key to erase a few letters at a time. Go ahead and press your delete key until the remaining letters in financial are erased. Make sure you delete the extra space between personal and budget too. Now press your right arrow key to move the insertion point, that's the blinking bar on the formula bar, to just before the G in the second word. Press your D key to correct the misspelling of budget. Once done, press your enter key. Most of you will have noticed by now that the words personal budget are too big for cell A1. They spill over into column B. This is called a long label, and it isn't a problem unless something in column B also wants to use the space. We'll see how to handle that later. Suzanne, click on cell B1 and look at the formula bar. This cell is empty, which is why the words from A1 were able to spill over into it. For now, you should understand that this typing is all stored in cell A1 as the name box indicates. Suzanne, move down to cell A3 and type in income. When you finish, press the enter key twice. Type expenses in cell A5 and press the enter key again, just once this time. We'll keep this budget simple and stick to the basic necessities. On screen now are our remaining categories: auto, clothing, food, insurance, rent, leisure, and savings. Type the expense labels in the column directly below the expenses title in column A, exactly as you see on the screen, pressing the enter key or the down arrow after each word. This may take some time, so feel free to stop or rewind the lesson to allow enough time to type these labels into your own spreadsheet. At the bottom of the list of expense categories, type in total expenses. We also need a balance line, so leave one blank row and then type balance in cell A15. When you finish that, move up to row 2 and over to column B and type in January. Place the pointer on the small square in the lower right corner of the cell. The small cross is called the fill handle, and it extends a series such as a list of months, days, or other such things that come in predictable lists. Now click and drag the fill handle across the next two cells to highlight all three. Remember to hold down the mouse button until both cells are highlighted. When you release the mouse button, Excel types in February and March all on its own. Suzanne, press your Control and Home keys together to move us back to cell A1. We're going to spell check our labels. On the standard toolbar is an icon with ABC and a check mark on it. It opens the Excel spell check program. Click on that icon, Suzanne. When the spell check dialog box opens, we are immediately presented the misspelling of insurance as well as Excel's best guess as what we really meant in the Change To box. Excel also gives us a list of closely matched possibilities. Since Excel has offered the correct word, click on the Change button. And with a simple click of the mouse, our first misspelled word is corrected. The next misspelled word, leisure, is quickly found, and Excel gives us suggestions to correct it too. We could click on the Change button and everything would be fine. Instead, let's use a different spell check command, autocorrect. This command not only corrects the misspelling, it guards against future misspellings too. Click on the autocorrect button, Suzanne, and two things happen. The misspelling is corrected for us, plus the word leisure is added to a list of other commonly misspelled words in autocorrect's memory. Now, anytime you misspell leisure by spelling it L-I-E instead of L-E-I, autocorrect will automatically correct the misspelling for us. As you work within Excel, you can add any word into this memory area. The spell check feature is very handy, but it isn't foolproof. The spell check dictionary doesn't always recognize correctly spelled words, such as proper names, scientific terms, or other uncommon words. If you know for a fact that a word is correctly spelled, you can add it to Excel's main dictionary by clicking on the Add button. When spell check is finished, a dialog box appears telling us that everything is correct. Click on the OK button to remove the spell check box from the screen. This looks pretty good, so let's learn how to save our work. Suzanne, right now, if we save this budget workbook, it would be titled Book 1. That doesn't tell us much, so let's give it a proper name. Click on the Save icon. It has a picture of a floppy disk on it and is located toward the left end of the standard toolbar. The Save As dialog box is designed to help us store our file in the correct place. The Save In area indicates where our file will be saved. Suzanne, since we are going to save this file to floppy disk, let's see if we can find that disk drive. Click on the Save In drop-down list arrow. This gives us access to all the available storage areas on our system, including disk drives and file folders. Each person's computer will have a different assortment of drives, directories, and files. One of the choices is the 3.5-inch floppy A drive. Before clicking on it, insert your blank disk into the A disk drive slot. Now click on the floppy disk drive title within the list. Since there are no existing folders on the new disk, the Files and Folders area in the center of the dialog box remains blank. To the right of the Save In box, we have a number of icons. The first is the Up One Level icon, and it allows us to walk up the directory tree structure of any chosen location. At this time, clicking on that icon moves you one level up to My Computer. We now see a listing of all available drives on Suzanne's system. Once again, choose the A drive. The second icon with the asterisk on top of it is the Look in Favorites icon. The third icon labeled Create New Folder allows you to automatically make and name a folder to store your spreadsheet in. Click on the New Folder icon, Suzanne, and then name the new folder Video Professor Lessons. When you finish, click on the OK button or press your Enter key. We now have a new folder on our floppy disk. We want to save our workbook file into this new folder, so double-click on its icon. It now appears in the Save In window. The remaining 4 icons allow us to arrange and display our files and folders within the display window. At the bottom of the dialog box are 2 lines. The first, marked File Name, allows us to enter a file name for our workbook file. Press your Alt and N keys together to select this area and then type in My Trial Budget. Type it in just as you see it on Suzanne's screen. And remember, with Windows 95, you are no longer limited to 8 letters, a period, and a 3-letter extension. You can use up to 255 ASCII characters, including spaces. The second line allows you to specify the file type you want your file stored in. With this option, you can save the workbook in another standard format such as Lotus, Works, or Quattro Pro. If the Microsoft Excel workbook isn't selected, scroll the list to find it. Then click on it to make sure that format is active. With that said, click on the Save button or press your Enter key. As soon as we do that, the Save As process begins, and we can hear the computer writing to the A drive. Once it's saved to disk, the file's name My Trial Budget appears on the worksheet title bar. Now that we have some labels in our budget spreadsheet, the next step is to write the 2 formulas suggested by those labels. A formula is simply the mathematical instruction that tells Excel how to combine numerical data in your spreadsheet. Formulas can contain numbers, text, operators, cell and range addresses, range names, functions, and other variables. The formulas we'll use in this budget are very simple. Balance means income minus total expenses. And total expenses obviously is the sum of all the expenses listed here.
Professor, we don't have any numbers in the spreadsheet yet. How can we do arithmetic without numbers?
Yes, I guess that must seem pretty strange if you haven't used a spreadsheet before. But in fact, you've just touched on the real power of spreadsheet programs. We can write formulas to define the relationship between items like adding or subtracting without even knowing the value of those items. Then we can put in different numbers and test various models for their answers. This is called what-if analysis, and budgeting is just one of the ways you can use this tool. Suzanne, let's write a formula that will calculate the balance for January. Click in cell B15, where the answer to that month's formula should appear. Type an equal sign. This tells Excel that you want to start writing a formula. If you were to start typing without first using an equal sign, Excel would assume that you were entering a label instead of creating a formula. Notice the equal sign also appears in the formula bar. Now, Suzanne, point to cell B3 and click. And that cell address appears both in cell B15 and in the formula bar. Type a minus sign to show that we want to subtract the second cell from the first, and then point and click on cell B13. The formula you have just written is income, which is in cell B3 minus total expenses in cell B13. This is the correct formula to calculate the balance in January. So click on the Confirm button or press Enter to complete the entry. A 0 appears in the balance cell for January, B15, to show the result of calculating the formula. In this case, it's 0 because we haven't entered any actual income or expense numbers yet. Once a formula is entered, it is no longer displayed in the cell it was created in unless you are editing the formula. We just created the simplest kind of formula, just adding or subtracting, or multiplying or dividing 2 cells. Now let's create a formula that will add all 7 categories of expenses together. Click on cell B13, January Total Expenses. Type an equal sign to tell Excel that a formula is coming. Now type in B6 plus B7 plus B8 and so on through B12 until all the expense cells for January are listed. Of course, the point and click technique we did for the balance formula could be used here too. When you have typed in the whole formula, check it carefully for typing errors. You don't want to miss any expenses, and you surely don't want to add any twice. Suzanne, our formula looks correct, so press the Enter key. Once again, we have 0 for the answer. That last formula took a lot of time in typing. Let's look at a shortcut that makes addition quicker and easier. The shortcut is called the sum function. It adds values or ranges of cells together, and it can be inserted into a cell by clicking on the AutoSum icon on the standard toolbar. We won't be using the AutoSum icon in this lesson because I want to walk you through the process of creating a function.
Professor, what is a function, and why should I use it instead of a formula?
A function is a formula, Suzanne. The sum function is one of many predefined formulas that come with Excel. Let's see how it works. Select cell C13 for the destination of this formula. Now type an equal sign, the word sum, S-U-M, and an open parentheses. Leave no spaces between the parts of the formula. Our sum function needs a list of the specific values called arguments to add together. In this case, the variables we want are the expense cell addresses for February, Suzanne. Click and drag your mouse from the expense cell for February auto, that's C6, to the cell for February savings, that's C12. As you highlight those cells, they are outlined and their cell addresses are written into the sum function's variable area.
Professor, I don't see each cell's address. Will this affect the calculation?
No, it won't affect the function's ability to perform the correct calculation. The block cells that you see on the sheet are called a cell range. Basically, they are a group of cells, XL, and in this instance, the sum function treats as a whole. What you see in the variables area is the address for that cell range. It only displays the cell addresses for the first and last cells, even though it includes every cell within the range. Any function formula has three parts, all of which are shown here. First comes the equal sign. It tells Excel that a formula is being used. Second is the name of the function, sum in this case. And finally, most functions include a list of arguments. As I stated a few moments ago, arguments are the variables in a function formula that tell Excel which cells will be used in the function's calculations. That list of variables is always enclosed by parentheses. To complete the function, type a closed paren and then press the Enter key. And there's another 0 indicating our formula for total expenses has been entered into the cell. Now we need to put the formulas into the other months. I'll show you two ways to do that. First, we'll use the fill handle to copy the January balance formula into February and March. You've already seen this work with text, but it works with formulas too. We'll start by selecting the cell to be copied, B15. Now move your mouse pointer to the square on the lower right of the cell until the pointer shape changes to the fill handle. Now drag the fill handle across cells C15 and D15 and then release the mouse button. That's all there is to it. While it was making copies, Excel did something extra for us behind the scenes. Click on cell C15. Look in the formula bar, Suzanne. It shows the formula in column C subtracts C13 from C3. The formula adjusts itself as it was copied into each new location. Now we'll use that second method that I hinted at. Select cell C13 and then click on the copy icon on the standard toolbar. It has two little pieces of paper on it. Suzanne, click in cell D13. This is the destination of our formula. Click on the paste icon. It's the one with the little clipboard on it. Now cell D13 has a modified copy of the sum formula in cell C13. Excel adjusted the cell references for us so the formula works properly within this column. While we have the sum function on the Windows clipboard, let's copy it into cell B13 to replace that old plus formula. Select B13. Look at the formula bar. There is the old cell plus cell formula. Now click on the paste button again. And there's the sum formula properly adjusted to add up the expenses in column B. Before we go much further, let's save to disk the new changes to our spreadsheet. Go ahead and click on the Save icon, Suzanne. We now have all the necessary ingredients to perform a successful what-if analysis. So let's do so. Before we can put this budget to work, we need to enter some raw data. We'll start by entering a monthly salary of $1,800. Select cell B3 and type 1800. Don't type a $sign or any commas. When you finish, press the down arrow key until you reach the cell for auto expense. Suzanne, it looks like our formulas are working. With $1,800 income and no expenses, we have a balance of $1,800 in cell C15. Enter $300 for auto expenses, then move down a cell and enter $200 for clothing. Now enter $200 for food. There's no insurance expense for January, so leave that cell empty. Our rent for the month is $500, so enter that amount in cell C10. Our total expenses so far add up to $1,200, and the balance is $600. Let's enter $125 for leisure activities and $350 for savings. With that done, we've allocated all but $125 of our income. We could keep the remaining amount as pocket money, but I think we should add another expense row to take care of those miscellaneous bills we pile up using plastic. Suzanne, right-click the row header that appears just left of the savings label. This opens a shortcut menu with a list of commands that can be applied to the selected workbook area. Click on the Insert command. We are given a new row between the leisure and savings rows. Anytime you insert a new row, it is entered above the row you selected before choosing the Insert command. We'll use this row to enter data for credit card expense.
Professor, what effect will adding or deleting rows have on my formulas?
Each time a row or column is inserted or deleted, Excel adds the formulas in the spreadsheet to accommodate those changes. Click in cell B14. Excel expanded the cell range so the formula includes the additional row in its calculations. And if you look at the other formulas, you'll see that they also adjusted themselves to accommodate the new row. With that said, let's enter the new expense label. Suzanne, click inside cell A12 and then type in the words credit cards. Press your right arrow key and then enter $125. With that done, we've allocated all our income, leaving a balance of $0 in the January budget. Suzanne, most expenses will be the same from month to month, so let's copy these numbers over into February and March. We can use the copy and paste commands to do this, but the autofill handle will accomplish the same thing and do it more quickly. Suzanne blocks cells B3 to B13. Once those cells are blocked, move the mouse pointer to the bottom right-hand corner of the cell range. When the autofill handle appears, click and drag the cell range outline to the right edge of column D. When you release the mouse button, the autofill command copies the income and expense data into columns C and D. With that done, let's see what sort of financial obstacles our little spreadsheet can help us overcome. Not all expenses are monthly. Some come once a year. Others, like car insurance, are at times paid every quarter. Let's see if our spreadsheet can accommodate this expense. Suzanne selects cell D9 and enter $400 for February's insurance expense. When you finish, press your Enter key.
Oh no, I have a negative balance.
Not to worry, Suzanne. We can fix that. And this is where Excel and what-if analysis comes in handy. The formulas we entered allow us to play around with the other monthly expenses until we have a $0 balance again. Select cell C7. Now let's say what happens if we change the clothing budget to $50 for February and reduce our leisure budget to $75. Suzanne, we still have a negative balance of $200, so we still need to adjust our figures. The easiest expense to reduce is savings, so select that cell and then enter $150. Once again, we have a $0 balance. Of course, we can try out other what-if scenarios, such as reducing the amount of money paid to other expenses. Feel free to experiment with the budget after this lesson. Right now, let's do another save, then print this spreadsheet. Click on the Save icon again. Suzanne, we have a functional spreadsheet, but I think it will be easier to read to others and us if we do a few formatting tasks. In general, formatting controls the appearance of your spreadsheet. This includes type style and size, lines and borders, column and row height and width, and other visual features that make your spreadsheet more understandable and more easily readable. Now place your pointer on the line between column A and column B. When you get there, the pointer will turn to a line with double arrows. It's one of Excel's sizing arrows. With the double arrows on the column divider, double-click your mouse button. Excel adjusts column A's width so it allows that column's longest label to fit comfortably inside its borders. That made the column wider like we wanted, but now we have more room than necessary for the individual expense labels. If each of the expense categories were aligned differently, they would be easier to read, so let's do that. First, highlight cells A6 through A13. Now click on the Center Align icon. It's located near the middle of the formatting toolbar. The highlighted labels are now center aligned between the left and right edges of column A. Our other labels remain at the default left alignment position. Now let's format the key labels to make them stand out a little better. Click and drag your mouse pointer across the month labels in cell B2 to D2. Now hold down the Control key and click on A3 for income, A5 for expenses, A14 for total expenses, and A16 for the balance label. This procedure allows us to treat a group of non-contiguous cells as a whole. Any commands issued at this time will affect every cell highlighted in the sheet. We want these labels to stand out, so let's boldface them. Click on the bold icon. It has a big B on it and is located just right of the font size box. Press your Control and Home keys together and then click and drag across cells A1 to E1. Let's make this a little bigger. Pull down the Format menu and select the Cells command. The dialog box that appears gives us access to every formatting command available to Excel. It groups like commands on tabs, so it is easier to perform formatting operations. Click on the Alignment tab. Now click on the arrow button next to the horizontal option box. When the list opens, select the Center Across selection option. The option will center the title across cells A1 to E1. Now click on the Font tab, Suzanne. Within this selection of options, use the font size window to select the font size of 20 points. With that done, click on the OK button. Our budget title takes on the formatting commands we selected in the Format dialog box. Excel automatically adjusted the row height to accommodate our new formats. Now let's separate the labels and totals for the raw data. Click and drag from cell B3 to D13. Once those cells are blocked, locate the border icon. It's 3 icons in from the right side of the formatting toolbar. Click on its arrow. It has a list of options to choose from. Click on the border choice at the bottom right-hand corner of the list. We now have a graphic border separating the main components and our income and expense numbers. Suzanne, let's add another format to help separate the total numbers from the raw data. Block cells B14 to D14. Once done, click on the Formatting toolbar's currency icon. It has a big $sign on it. The total figures now appear in the U.S. currency format, which displays a $sign before each total, commas where needed, a decimal point, and 2 decimal places. Let's apply this format to the balance figures as well. Instead of clicking on the currency icon, I want to show you how to apply all the formats in one cell or cell range to another cell or cell range. Just under the Data menu, you can see an icon with a small paintbrush on it. It's the Format Painter, and it applies the formats in one area of the spreadsheet to another. Click on it. It now carries the formats applied to cells B14 through D14. Drag it across cells B16 to D16. The Format Painter arrow paints its copied formats to each new cell as it is highlighted. Suzanne, it only took us a few minutes and a handful of formatting commands to make the spreadsheet easier to read and understand. We've only used a few of this program's many formatting options, and as we've seen, there are many ways to apply them. Before going any further, click on the Save icon to quickly save these changes to disk. Although you can keep your work on disk and view your spreadsheet on screen, it is sometimes helpful and even necessary to print out your work. To do this, you'll need a printer or access to one. Let's take a look. Suzanne, pull down the File menu and choose the Print command. This dialog box gives us access to everything needed in printing a spreadsheet. At the top of this box, we are shown which printer is currently being used, what port it is connected to, and if it is active. Suzanne is using an HP LaserJet 4. Suzanne, click on the arrow to the right of the name box. If you have more than one printer available to you, or if you have a fax program as a print option, their drivers will be listed here. To select one, just click on it. Viewers, make sure the printer driver for the printer connected to your system is selected here. The Properties button to the right of the name box gives us access to an entire dialog box of printer settings options. Click on it, Suzanne. Within the dialog box, we can fine-tune the finished product by selecting paper size and orientation, graphic resolution, and other commands that control the way your printer prints. We won't be changing any of the defaults for this lesson, so click on the Close button. The Page Range option allows us to print specific sheets within a workbook. For example, if our workbook held 25 worksheets of information, we could tell Excel to print sheets 11 through 18 or another array of pages without printing out the entire document.
Professor, my workbook has 3 sheets. Should I tell Excel to print only sheet 1?
Don't worry, Suzanne. You won't be stuck with a bunch of blank pieces of paper. Excel can see that the other 2 sheets are empty, so it won't send them to the printer. Suzanne, make sure the All button is toggled on. The Print What area is asking us what we want to print: a selected range of cells, the active sheet, or the entire workbook. We want to print the active sheet, which is the worksheet you currently have on screen, so make sure that option is selected. If we were simply copying this spreadsheet to a file, we would mark the Print to File option. This comes in handy if you don't have a printer connected to your system, but have access to one somewhere else. Excel asks how many copies of our workbook we want printed. The increment arrows allow us to indicate how many copies we want. Below the number of copies box is the Collate Copies option. This option is helpful when you're printing more than one copy of your document. The graphics show us how the pages will be collated or organized when the document is finally printed. The default setting tells Word to collate pages as they are being printed. If you are printing only one copy of a multi-page document, it won't matter if this option is toggled on or not. Before you send a spreadsheet to the printer, let's preview it. Suzanne, click on its button located at the lower left-hand corner of this dialog box. The preview screen gives us an overview of how the page will look on the hard copy printed page. It's good for checking the spatial arrangement of the data elements. The buttons at the top of the preview screen give us control over the printed appearance of the page. For example, a click on the Margins button shows us a set of guidelines that represent our current margin settings. To change a margin, just click and drag the corresponding margin until it fits your needs. You can change the top, bottom, left, and right margin settings. Although it is very easy to use these guidelines to set margins, Excel gives us even more precise control over our margins. Click on the Setup button. This opens the Page Setup dialog box. The options on the Margins tab allow us to enter specific settings for each margin, together with controls that automatically center a worksheet's data. Suzanne, toggle on the 2 options that appear under the Center On Page heading. These options base their settings on the current margins. Now click on the OK button. The preview screen shows us how the new settings affect our data's appearance on the hard copy page. Our budget is centered vertically and horizontally on the printed page, but it seems a little too small to read. Let's remedy this. Click on the Setup button again. Now click on the Page Setup tab. On it, we have control over page orientation, scaling, page size, and quality. The defaults have our workbook printing on page size at 8.5 by 11 inch, scaling at 100%, and portrait orientation. Now let's see if we can't make our budget a bit bigger without changing its font size. To do that, we need to use the scaling commands. Scaling enables you to change an object's size by a percentage. If you want an object to be half its current size, for example, you scale it by 50%. If you want an object to be twice its current size, you can scale it by 200%. Suzanne, let's scale the budget 165%. Click on the Increase Increment arrow attached to the scaling entry box until 165 appears in the entry box. Click on the OK button. There, that made things easier to see. Overall, our budget looks pretty good. But it is a good idea to double-check the finer details, and to do that, you just move the magnifying icon into the spreadsheet area and click. Unlike scaling, zooming doesn't physically affect the workbook's data. Zooming won't make Excel print the budget any larger than it is. It just lets us check the details before deciding it's time to print. Another click of the mouse and we are back to the full-size screen preview. This looks okay, Suzanne, so click on the Print button at the top of the preview screen. And in a few seconds, we'll have a hard copy of the budget in our hands. Remember, you can always come back and reformat the labels, columns, or any other spreadsheet element. And with that, we have come to the end of this lesson. In my Level 2 lesson, we'll expand on the skills learned in this lesson, as well as create and manipulate charts and graphs. Thanks for being such a good student. And remember, there is much more you can learn from me, the Video Professor.